The hell is it?
Okay, welcome back to the next episode of our UDK tutorials with myself. Oh man, I should have grabbed a drink. You know, I'm gonna go do that quick, sorry. All that talking for the last one. Oh, my throat. Okay, sorry about that. I just needed to do that quick. My throat was, I couldn't even talk. Okay, so we are going to be going over now the UI, the user interface here for the UDK and the Unreal Engine 3. What we're going to do is first load up a map. Well, I loaded up this map just to show you guys what we're doing here. So, and that's under File. You go to Open and select the VCTF Necropolis, which is Unreal Tournament map that you can play on. Anyway, as you can see, I'm using the navigation which I taught you guys in the last episode, and that is just letting me fly around in all these different places. So yeah, it's a pretty cool map, and it'll be a good example map to start with and showing you all the UI stuff. So let's start with let's start with the top bar, which is, you know, pretty standard for any you know, any program you may have on Windows. And you know, it's got the file edit and stuff, which is pretty standard. At the top here you'll see the name of the map and then Unreal Development Kit. Which version you have, 64-bit is what I have, and then DX9, of course, is the renderer. So let's start with File. As you can see, New will start a new map. That's pretty explanatory. Open opens a map. Save current level is what you're going to use to save all the time. There's no Control-S shortcut for saving in this one, so I suggest you just go to File and then Save Current Level. And that'll, you know, save your level, which I probably shouldn't have done that. Oh, no, that took no time at all. Save As saves the level. All these ones right here are a little different. I wouldn't really touch these. They have to do with packages and the different stuff that I will explain later. So I won't worry. Don't worry about these. Switch renderer, obviously, I showed you that in the last one. Switches your renderer between DirectX 11 and DirectX 9. I don't know why they don't have 10 on there. I guess they just didn't want it. Import and export are not really anything I've ever messed with, but they all have to do with importing map data, which is CSG geometry, which I will also get into soon. Which is a lot of the stuff I'm going to be doing here is just going to be showing you what it does and if you need it right now or not. So I would just not worry if I don't show you what it does exactly. Favorites and recent are the different maps that you save. Recent usually is a good way to access saved maps. That's usually what I do. And you can favorite them too. And then exit, of course, close down the program. So that's File, Edit. Control-Z is pretty much a big help, a big factor in, you know, editing maps and stuff, as it is with many video editing programs. So I just you know, use your shortcut. And I guess Control-Y is redo, and I have nothing to redo. It does have a pretty long list of undos. I'm not really sure. I couldn't give you a number of how many undos it lets you do, but some things it doesn't let you undo though. So I would use caution. So let's see. We'll move it once, twice, 3, 5. Then if we do Control-Z, Z, 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 and then, you know, it goes all the way back. So that's, you know, always helpful if you ever screw up. So that's pretty helpful. There are some things that you got to be careful with that I will show you later. With dragging different values, they made some shortcuts for just making it so you can drag values easier in lighting, but it does too many. Like every single time you drag, it does every single change in the variables. So it racks up too many. You can't always undo it all the way. So you got to be careful there. And then here is your translate, rotate, and scale. This changes your widgets. So if you click on this static mesh here, say, for example, that is a transform widget. This is a rotate widget, which will let you rotate, you know, that way. They actually implemented all this just, it was a little while ago, but it's pretty recent, and it's really helpful for, you know, rotating objects at various degree levels, and then you can rotate them around. and it tells you how much you've rotated it, and it's actually really helpful. And I'll tell you about the snap grid too in a bit. And then of course you have the scale. Now scaling is extremely important. I'll get into this more later, but it makes it so you can scale up and down different meshes. And what this does is it allows you to use different meshes in a lot of different areas for different purposes, and that's really the secret to a lot of games. Is you'll go around and you'll see the same exact mesh twice, but at a completely different size, which I believe is right here. This is the same exact mesh as this, but as you can see, it's quite a bit bigger over here, and it's used for something not completely different, but it's definitely used for something different. So I mean, that's a huge secret, is you can pretty much just reuse meshes. And if you'll walk around in games like Mass Effect, you'll see the same exact thing in different places with maybe a different, they just mess with the material a little bit to make it look different. But it's a really clever thing, and a huge asset when it comes. So you don't have to make, different things all the time with the 3D apps. Anyway, you got your cut, copy, paste, duplicate, delete. This is pretty standard for any editing. Cut, deletes it. Control Z, bring it back. Copy, well, Control C, and then of course you got your paste, which will duplicate it. But there's much better ways to duplicate, so I would not use that method. If you need to, of course you can, but I would caution you that that's not the best way to do it. I will show you how to do it soon. So, and then obviously delete. These ones right here, let's see, select none, select builder brush. This is for selecting different objects in your viewport. So let's see. Select all would select everything. I'm not going to do that because that might slow the stuff down. Select none would obviously select nothing. Select the builder brush would find the builder brush wherever it is, and it's that big red thing. You can see there's the widget for it. You can see it moving right now. That's the builder brush. They obviously never moved it out of there. And then you have select by property, and let's see. How would you do that? I don't know if I've ever used that before. That's not too important. I guess you could pick a certain property and then have it select everything with the same one. And then you can find the post-process volume, which I'll explain, but they're not exactly necessary if you're going to be making machinima. But if you're going to be making a certain map, they are necessary. So I'll explain them later. But they usually surround the entire map. So they've added some of these. I don't remember seeing all of them. And then invert selection would pretty much select everything that isn't selected, or select stuff that isn't. I don't know. It just does the exact opposite. So that's selected right now. If I do invert selection, I believe it will select everything else on the map. Yeah. So everything that I didn't select, it's going to select now. So if you're doing selection stuff, then that is the way to do it. Otherwise, you can just find actors. You can type in their name. So if I wanted static mesh, statics, and then it'll bring up all the static mesh actors. And if I knew the name of it, I'd search it. But it lists them all by number and then name and stuff. So that is a good way to find actors. And you can go by the tags, which I'll explain later, and then names and which level it's on. And there's different levels because sometimes you'll have level streaming acted, where what happens is a good way that developers use ways so they don't have to use loading screens is they do level streaming. And pretty much what would happen is, let me try and give you an example here. Say that someone is coming inside this building right here, and as soon as they turn the corner, everything out here just stops loading and just disappears. Well, it'd have to be a better example. Like, go around this corner right here, because then, well, no, you can. Anyway, as soon as something, it's like occlusion. What would happen is you'd go into an area where you can't see the other area, and that area would stop loading so that you could focus only on this area. And what would that would let you do is that would let you have more than one map. And that means you could have, 1, 2, 3 sections of map instead of having to load everything at once, which is mean you wouldn't have to, do loading screens and stuff, which is, it's used in a lot of games. It'd be hard to explain one that does use it because they can hide it pretty seamlessly. So It's kind of hard to explain. I'm going to turn this. I'll explain this in a second. So yeah, that's how you do that. The view section. This is kind of an interesting little spot. And remember, a lot of this stuff that's up in here is all down here in the buttons, which I'll explain. So don't always resort to going up here. I'm just trying to explain this. So the browser windows. This actually brings up the content browser. So don't worry about this. All you really have to do for that browser window is just click on this and it brings up all that stuff. So don't worry about that. That's not necessary. This is the actor properties. Let's say if you select an actor and you want to bring up actor properties, you can go to view. Actor properties brings up this little box, which we'll go into depth later. But you can also, of course, see the little shortcut right here is F4. So if I hit F4, it pops up. And you're good to go. And F5 would be surface properties. That is only for BSP. I think that's a BSP. Is that? Yeah. Okay. So, and that would bring up this box right here, which I just double-clicked on it. But I can also do that, and it'll pop up F5. Ugh, excuse me. And now this brings up Unreal Kismet and Unreal Matinee, which are both different programs within Unreal. Because what Unreal is it's one big program combined with about 30 or 40 different little programs that all make it work together. And then Matinee, which of course is my favorite, and it's asking me which sequence in the map I want to bring up, but I'm not going to because I'm just showing you what it does right now, and that would be the same as clicking this little button here. So you'd ask me everything. Okay, so drag grid. This is all down here. I'm just going to try and reference everything that you see. Drag grid is, of course, snap grid, which you select by units. So what would happen is, let's say we wanted to move our little pillar here. We can call him Frankie the pillar, if I can select him. As you can see, when I move him, it kind of jerks and it snaps to each little increment. If I wanted to make that, you know, I should probably just explain this later. But anyway, you can make it super big, so it really snaps every 128 units. Oh, it's great. Auto save. I gotta take care of that in a second. I'll show you guys in a second. But yeah, that's the drag grid. I'm just gonna keep that. I'll explain that in a little bit here when I get down to the bottom right of the screen there. The rotation grid is the same. Scale grid is the same. I wouldn't worry about touching these because they're all down here and they're more accessible. Autosave options. This is for, I guess you can make it save packages too now. That's actually pretty cool. And then you can do the intervals here. I'm actually going to turn it off. That way I don't have to worry about it auto saving every time. Actually, I'll turn it off down here really quick. I'll show you guys when I get down there. So that's the auto save stuff. It's not really that necessary. Actually, not when I'm recording, it's not necessary. Then there's the detail mode. This goes, I don't know. I think this is for LOD. Like if you have some LOD, which is level of detail objects, they're going to change. Like I think these things change right here. Let's see. Watch those little wires there, these things. Yeah, because they disappear. So what that means is level of detail is pretty much a fancy way of saying if it's just an explanation of if you're farther away from an object that you can't really see, it either makes it really simple so that it doesn't have to render it extremely high. That way saving resources. And then a lot of the times you can do it. You can do it in editor too here just to make it so you don't have to render everything at once. Emulate mobile features. They just added that. It pretty much just turns all the shaders to a mobile perspective, and I shouldn't have done that because now it's going to compile all the shaders in this map because it's never been mobilized before. Oh, you got to be kidding me! Why did I do that? Why did I do that? Crap. Maybe I should stop recording and let it do this. Okay, yeah, one second. Sorry about that. Okay, that was fun. I just sat there for the past while just waiting for it to update the stupid mobile textures. I can just give you guys a quick demonstration of what it does. It pretty much just emulates what would appear on a mobile device because it has to dumb down the textures and all the shadows and stuff because they really can't, you know, they don't have graphics cards like our computers do. So as you can see, it's quite a bit different. Let's go back to Necropolis. Takes a second to reload that up, and boom, we're back. Let's see, where was I? Oh yeah, this little stupid dumb here. Anyway, so now we got a bunch of stuff for options of the viewport that they've changed a little bit since I first started using it. So we have show widget, transform widget, which would obviously show or not show. If I can select that stupid thing right here, boom. So as you can see, there's the transform widget. If we disappeared, it'd go away. So that's, you don't really want that. You want to keep the transform widget because it's usually a good thing to have. So it allowed translucent selection. What this would do if you enabled it is, if you click on it, it lets you select particle systems or different objects, even though they're translucent, which means they're not completely solid. And for some reason, I'm not selecting. Why is it not letting me select that? Does it count for the particle systems anymore, or is it just materials? Huh, that's weird. I guess that is weird. Unless I'm oh, you know what? I'm selecting. I must be selecting something else that's in front of me. See, it's really, it's hard to use that little feature. It's right here too, because what happens is it's really odd, because sometimes what'll happen is you'll have a lens flare in front of you, like say that lens flare right there, and if you try and select something right here, it's going to select the lens flare like that. As you can see, the lens flare is not what I wanted to select. I wanted to select something right here, but translucent selection's on. So I would be careful with that. It's not always the thing you want to use. So unless you're trying to purposely select a lens flare, then I would get away from that. So allowing group selection. If I, let's see, I'm trying to think if I know what this means or not. Maybe it's if you go to the grid view. Let's see, what am I trying to do? Where's the stupid thing? This is what happens when they change a bunch of stuff. Makes me mad sometimes. Trying to think. Let's see if it doesn't let me allow. Oh, whoops. Okay. You know what? I don't really know what that does. I get no. I know what it does. Never mind. I know what it does, because you can select by groups sometimes. Select. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Are you kidding me right now? Wait. No. Select. There we go. These ones. And then you can select by the different kinds of groups. I guess that would do it. It's really not that big of a deal, I guess. So, I would not worry about that too much, because I've never ran into having to use it or not. Use strict box selection and viewports. You just kind of saw me do it, where I went to the 2x2 grid and used Control-Alt to drag box, and sometimes it'll like strictly say what's inside the box and not, I guess. I don't know. A lot of this stuff they added not too long ago, and I have no idea what they mean. Or they added it and I didn't really care to use it too much. Draw brush marker polys. Let's see. Brush marker polys. That can only mean the builder brush. I guess that's another semi-useless one. Unless I have no idea. And then I had talked about the level streaming earlier. This is something that would have to do with that. I would not get into that too much because I don't really know anything about it. I would try and avoid that for now. Lock prefabs from selection. I don't know if there's a prefab on this map. I could try and find one. Let's see if I can find a prefab really quick. Don't look at what I'm doing right now. Prefabs. Do they have anything, any kind of prefabs ready for me? I don't think they would. It'd have to be inside the level. Prefab, here we go. Here's a prefab. What is the prefab exactly? Is it that nasty looking thing right here? Oh, I don't think it is. So anyway, what prefabs are is they're pretty much you build stuff and then lock them together. Oh, wait a second. No, it's this thing. Ah, it's that right there. That's the prefab. So this is actually made up of several different objects, and if you happen to do something to it, I guess that would, you know, lock the prefabs. And then if you can, so like if you see, I'm selecting all the different assets to it now that I have unselected that, and then lock prefabs selects the whole thing. So if you want to select different objects inside the prefab, then that's what you can do. I'll explain prefabs later, though. Okay, enable socket snapping. We'll use that later. What that does is it makes it so you can snap different weapons to bones, so that your characters can hold weapons and not having to, you know, animate the weapon inside their hand, which is pretty much impossible in this. And this shows the socket names. They just added that. I know that for a fact. That'll actually, when it shows the sockets, which will show right now, should be on some vehicles here. Yeah, there's some right there. So that shows all the sockets. That's pretty much places where they attach particle systems and stuff and attach the driver, and that's pretty much their way of doing that. And there's a particle system attachment, and what you would do now is show the socket names, and it tells you what bone the socket is attached to. Or if they, actually they named them. Sometimes they're the same exact thing as the bone, same exact name. But in this case, I think they actually named them, so let's forget about that. So we'll disable socket snapping. Uncheck socket names. Enable particle system LOD. So what this does, let me see if I can find another particle system, which would be some fire. And I know where I saw fire right here. So what that does is, as you can see, there's fire close to us. Let me go into game mode quick. There's fire right here and fire right there. So let us enable the LOD. As you can see, it's pretty much simplified into like a one puff of fire, whereas this one is not. So if we back up, it will slowly generate to the lower LOD, which is puff of fire, one at a time. That's pretty much that. That's not really necessary. Unless you really need to. And then particle system helpers, I have no idea. They obviously just added that. Let's see if it does anything. Oh, yep, it does. Okay, it adds like a area. Okay, I see what it does. Okay, that's interesting. I never saw those before. It just dissipates. It just kind of shows where it's level and stuff. That's actually pretty helpful. So that's a good thing they added that. LOD view locking. I don't know what that is. Maybe it just locks a certain LOD in there. I don't know. That's obviously not too important. Anything that deals with LOD, if you're making a machinima, I would avoid, because it comes into a lot. It brings a lot of snapping issues into the equation. And what happens is they don't really have, a lot of the times they don't have a way of transitioning the LOD. So it starts off as kind of a blocky object, then snaps into a little bit finer polyed object, and then finer and finer, and it snaps. So it's kind of, if you really want to see an example of it, if you go play COD 4 on the PC, walk away from one of the weapons and you'll see it really distinctly. It's kind of nasty looking. So I'd be careful with that. And now we get into the viewport configurations. You can make new viewports that'll be floating. So if like I wanted to make a new perspective one to put on my other monitor, I'd do that. And then there's the orthographic viewports, you know, the top, side, front ones. Then you got the viewport configuration where you can go between like this. That's pretty cool and helpful. And they can be used for all different kinds of things, and one by one, where you got this kind of view on the bottom, and then the game view on the top. And of course, my favorite is either this or completely big like that. I like this one the best. It's usually the best because it gives you the best feel of the map, and you know, you don't have to worry about having to go on the orthographic viewports too much unless you absolutely need to. It's good for aligning things, of course, but other than that, sometimes it's kind of just tedious to deal with. So yeah, that's that stuff. And then we have, of course, the full screen, which goes full screen. I'm not going to do that now, but I wouldn't suggest using it. It's kind of, and I'm not going to do it now because the frap's going. And then you got your lighting info, which, when did they add this? Lighting tools. What is this? Oh, I've never seen this stuff before. Whoa! They have never had this before. That is awesome. Oh, well, look at that. Okay, well, we got some new lighting tools that I have never seen before. So, okay, that's from, okay, I know where that's, I'll explain that stuff later. That's from Light Build. Okay, so this is all light map. This is all, I'll explain this stuff later, but that I've never seen this lighting tools thing before. That's really cool. That kind of gives you some info on what's going on in the scene as far as lighting. Okay, so brush, you got your CSG add, subtract, intersect, de-intersect. This is all CSG geometry stuff, which I'll explain. This can all be found right here, so don't worry about this. Adding special is this one, add volume is this one, or maybe it's the other. I can't remember. And then import, export brush shapes. I wouldn't even worry about this, and be honest, there's not a whole lot you need to worry about anything up here. I'm just kind of showing you what it does because it's pretty much all down here and quick to find place. So building, this is a way of doing a lot of the calculations before you're playing. It cooks in information like the geometry of the map and the lighting and AI paths. So this will all be building, but this is also available, you know, down here at the bottom. So don't worry about that, of course, and then build all. You'll mostly be using the build all option, which is also down here, which builds all the paths and lights and stuff. As you can see, these little apples right here are AI paths that just kind of give the AI an idea of where they're supposed to run, which I will try and do later. I've never really been one for the AI stuff. So playing, you can play and test out your map, or you know, like this is how you capture your cinematics and stuff. And what you do is you either use this stuff up here, which I can't really do now, or I might crash something. It would play in the editor in the active viewport, which would be in this area, or you can play, if you're doing a mobile game, you can play it on your you know, your iPhone or whatever, or on the mobile previewer, or on the PC, which boots up a whole nother section, and I'll play here in a second. Okay, now for tools, this is kind of a little important section. You can check map for errors. This actually automatically happens at the end of every light build, and as you can see, it gives me some mobile errors that never would have happened if you didn't have mobile integrated Unreal. So that automatically happens at the end of every light build, or what's it called? AI path build. So don't worry about clicking up here. New terrain. This is important. This will build your new terrain if you want to make terrain, which I'll get into later. I'll do a whole special episode on it. So that's the only place you can find that, unless they implement it somewhere here out. I can't. Somewhere out here I can't see, but it's probably the only place you can get it is right here. Clean BSP materials. I have never seen that before. What does that do? Oh, okay. That's must be like an optimization thing. Replacing skeletal mesh actors, regenerate all proc buildings, regenerate. Okay, so all this stuff I would not worry about because it's very. Yeah, I don't know anything about this, so I'm not even going to attempt to explain it. It's not that important if you're doing simple stuff. So this is stuff you shouldn't need to worry about right now. So I'm going to probably do some reading up on these to make sure I know what I'm doing. So now we get to preferences. This is kind of important if you want to, you know, do anything specific with your editor. And these settings are usually pretty good. Let me just check through them, though, because they obviously added these recently. And it usually has to do with, you know, the WASD camera controls. And then, oh, this is what it was before. Look at that. So you can't use Oh, there it is. Yay! I'm keeping this. So it only, if I want to toggle my static meshes, it's W. Perfect. That's what I'm going to stay on, because that way it's old school. That's what it was before when I was learning all this. So I'm just keeping it on that. So all this stuff would have to do with navigating your orthographic viewport. and maintaining aspect ratio, which would keep it from skewing your picture, I guess. So I just keep that there because I don't think anyone wants to skew their image too much. Let's see, resize top and bottom. Zoom. Okay, so what this would do is, let me go back to our orthographic viewport, the 2x2 split. Okay. Which you can also do, sorry, if this is big like this, up here in the top right corner is a little button that'll bring it back to what we had. So, as you can see, when I move one of these and I right-click and spin around, I just right-click and that grabs. And left-click actually does the same. Mouse wheel scrolls in and out. As you can see, the viewports are all kind of moving with it. If I unselect this one, only one viewport at a time, so that they don't all move at the same time. And then zoom to cursor position would mean what happens when you zoom is in... Okay, so as you can see, when I zoom in with the mouse scroll, it doesn't really matter where I have my cursor. It just zooms in to where it's pointed at. But if I have zoom to cursor position, it zooms into where my mouse cursor is. See how it kind of follows it? So if I have it over here, it's going to go left and scroll over to it. So that's another thing. Grab and scroll. That didn't seem to do anything. Grab and drag to scroll. Oh, I don't know what that is. Grab and drag to scroll. Oh, okay. Never mind. I think... Oh, no. I don't really know what that does, if it does anything, so I just keep that checked. Aspect ratio. Let's see. Highlight objects under mouse cursor. This would make it so anything underneath it would kind of get highlighted, which is kind of odd to me. I've never usually really used that, so as you can see, it kind of gets highlighted. Even though you can barely see it out in the sun, you can really see it in the shade here. See how it gets highlighted? Which I guess that's kind of cool. I don't know if I want that, though. That's kind of weird. And then highlight selected objects with brackets. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, yeah, I see what that does. Ew, no. Ew. This is all stuff I've never even seen before, so I apologize if I like it highlighted like that. Wireframe halos. Default to real time, yeah, that's fine. Use absolute translation. Enable combined. You can do it combined? Oh, I don't know if I like this. They have a lot of new weird stuff. No. Probably have to do something special. Okay. This is all you can go through this. I'm trying to make sure there's nothing that's really crucial here. Auto re-import texture applies. No, no. Unless you're making a mobile game, no, I never have that checked. And then, of course, your editor language. Okay, so a lot of this stuff I would go through there and see if you want anything, kind of try each one out. And then, of course, you have your help, which is, you got, oh, look at that. You can pop up the welcome screen. You don't even, okay, perfect. No, I don't want that at startup. Stupid thing. And then you got online help. And startup tips, they actually took those out. These are little startup tips that'll give you little tips and stuff. And you can have that show at startup if you want. And that's pretty helpful. And then you got your about. So that's pretty much the top bracket there. Yeah, so now it's going to be super fast going through this stuff because I pretty much showed you everything. This is the new level. I'm going to go across the top, then I'll go down, then I'll go across the top of this too, which is, they're all the same. But, you know, let's do this to keep from confusion. Okay, so I'm going to start up here. This, of course, is create new level, open level, and then this brings up your recents, and then you can favorite the level here. If you favorite it, then it'll pop up in your favorites right here. You got your save, and then your save all levels and save all writable packages. I would stay away from those and save packages separately. You got your undo, your redo. Your selection mode, which is pretty much a way to select stuff only, and it makes it so you cannot move anything. It just lets you select, which is actually pretty cool. You can drag, box, and select all that stuff. So you got your translation widget, which I had showed you earlier, which if I can get a static mesh here, and then you've got your rotation, you've got your scale, and then another cool object is the ununiform scale, which makes it so you can scale objects and skew them in different ways. So if you want to make an object longer or skinnier to fit your building, then that is the way to do it. It's actually very helpful. To cycle through these, you can hit space, and I suggest you do that. But the only thing is the selection and the non-uniform scaling mode are only selectable with the mouse because they're kind of uncommon, or less uncommon than the other three. Okay, so now we get into what's called the local or world reference coordinate system. And what this does is when you're selecting by objects, you can go in either space, the space of the world or the space of the local object. As you can see, this is local. It's going along the axis, which is the object, because it's not perfectly straight. So the transformation widget, I used to know the terms for these. I'm probably butchering this, but it's not the same as the world. So as you can see, I flattened it out there and made it level. But I can move an object along the axis of the object. As you can see there, it's going up and down. But if I switch it to world, it would go to the world system, which is always going to be straight up and down. With the z-axis up, as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see the world reference for the axis. It's z up, and then x, and then y is coming back at me. So that'll switch it to the world. This is helpful in animation. Whenever you're animating, make sure you're in local, unless it's going to be, very simple, movement that you need to keep on a certain axis. So that's that. I would suggest keep it in world whenever you're building, and then just go back and forth between them if you need anything. Here's your find actors thing. I showed that to you earlier. That's a quick way to get to it. Your content browser, your Kismet system. You got your matinee, which will bring up the matinee editor, which I'm not going to do. Then you've got your viewport, the clipping plane, which is pretty much a way to render only what you need to. So if you need to only render, this far in front of you, then that's what it'll do. So you can make it render as much or as little as you need to work with. That's if your computer is kind of slowing down. Then you got, your allow translucent selection, which should, in theory, let me select this little thing, which it's not letting me do. There, it selected the lens flare. That's a good explanation. oh, stuff like this right here. You should be able to select that. I don't know why it's not letting me select that. It's really weird, because that would be considered a translucent static mesh here. So I don't know why that's happening. Maybe that's being kind of a little buggy or something. I don't know. So that's that. I apologize. It's not working correctly. And then you have your little section here for telling how much it needs to select of a object when you're using this method right here, which is Control-Alt, and then you drag. And then it selects everything inside it that touch... okay, so... Sorry, let me explain this again. It selects everything in this method right here. It selects everything that is touching my drag box here. So everything that's touching that is going to be selected, which is quite a bit of stuff, as you can see. But if we only wanted it to select stuff that are completely encompassed inside the box, we do that. So as you can see, only that was completely surrounded by my box, and therefore, and that, I guess, was selected. So that's that stuff. And you hit escape. By the way, escape is to deselect. So that's that. I usually keep it on that because I barely use it. I guess this is new. They added this, select to use low quality materials. And I guess that would bump everything down, which it's not. It's kind of weird. And then we get into the building section where you can build your geometry, you can build your lighting, which I'll get into depth later. Build your paths, build your cover nodes, build all, which will build all 4 of these. Cover nodes being the things that, like in Gears or Mass Effect, you hop up against and stay there. This stuff, build all and submit to source control. Do not worry about that unless you're hooked up to a network for your game development company. I don't think that's even necessary. Lighting quality, you can set it medium, high, production, or preview. This affects the light build times. We'll get into that later. Don't worry about that now. Full screen mode, of course. Real-time audio. Do I have it? There's no audio here. Oh, wait, my headphones aren't on. You guys can probably hear this. Yeah, as you can hear, there's a lot of sounds. Now I can hear it. But that's pretty much the audio that's going on in the game, so you can hear it. Emulate mobile features, install an iOS device, start this level, blah, blah, blah. That's all mobile stuff. Do not touch that unless you're mobile gaming it. This is the start the level on the PC. What this would do is open up a new section that will say, oh, hey, you're playing in a different version. Like, it boots up a separate Unreal Engine. Like, if I right-click here, say play from here, it saves it really quick, and then throws me into an editor window or a new window. Whoa! It's kind of loud. As you can see on the top left says the lighting needs to be rebuilt because I messed with some meshes right there. But anyway, that's how you play your map. I wouldn't suggest doing the other thing because it takes a little while unless you really want to. Kismet debugging, no idea. And then play this level in the editor window, which would make it so this entire area is your playing area. Wait, never mind. This starts you at a spawn point. Okay, never mind. Play level in viewport. There we go. This will make it so the entire viewport's the play area. There we go. So all sorts of different ways to play your level. That's, you know, all three of them right there, and my mouse is freaking out. Come on, mouse. What are you doing? Oh, there we go. That was kind of weird. Not really sure why that happened. Okay, so that's that top level. That is all going to be your main tools, and you're going to be using all of those a lot. So, you know, play around with them and mess with them until you figure out everything there is to know about it. Now we're going to go down the left side. I'll go over this stuff last. I decided. I apologize. First, here's the different modes. As you can see, it labels these modes: brushes, CSG, volume select, go to. Modes, you're always pretty much going to be in camera mode. There's actually a geometry mode used for editing geometry and brushes. That'll be useful. Terrain mode, which brings up the terrain editing box, which we'll go over, of course, later. Texture alignment mode, which is used for aligning different textures on BSP geometry, like that. You can go like that. You can rotate them, scale them, do all sorts of things. So we'll go over that later. Mesh paint mode. I have yet to really do anything with this. I really kind of want to do something with it right now, though. Let's see here. If I read this correctly. Oh, ew. Okay, let's try something here. Trying to figure out how you paint here. Let's see here. No, that's for... Oh, cool. You got blend weights. Select an object with 2D textures. Oh, look at that. Oh, man, look at that. Oh, it's got a repeating texture, though. Look at that. That's awesome. What if we selected this thing? See, look at that. See, it's painting all the object instances in the map, too. Look at that. That is sweet. That's awesome. See, I've never messed with that before because it's a fairly new thing. Look at that. And you can see all the different instances in the map of that same exact mesh. That's sweet. Okay, because it selects the texture. Okay, that is awesome. Okay. No, I don't want to commit those. Oh, it's going to hang up here. Oh, look at that. Crash. See, that's what happens with some parts of UDK is crash. 1 second. Okay, so as we just saw, it is always important to save your map because this is a beta and it's in beta and it probably will always be in beta. So there are always things that do not work exactly like they should. So be careful about using that. Static mesh mode is, we'll just keep going through this stuff. I don't really know what this does exactly. I guess you just go through and you can set the settings and stuff. I've never really used it before, to be honest. What is this? Landscape mode. Oh, man. Oh, yeah, this is the, like, super terrain mode. Okay. We'll have to go into that later. See, this is all stuff that they added, like, recently. And then the foliage mode, I'd played with this a little bit. This is pretty fun. You can add foliage and stuff. We'll go into this later, of course. And then we get down here to brushes. This just does different shapes to our BSP builder brush. If I could find where it is. Where did you go? Where did you go? Ah, there it is right there. Okay. See this red thing right here? As you can see, every time I select a different one, there's you can right-click on these two and configure. We'll go into that later. You got the cone, staircase, cylinder, linear staircase, sheet, spiral staircase, tetrahedron, and then cards. So that's all stuff we'll go into later. You can right-click and change. And then, of course, you got like the CSG add, which will add geometry. And then there's the subtract. So it should subtract the geometry. There's de-intersect and intersect, which I'll go into later. And then, of course, we have the add different volumes, which will add special brushes. And then, of course, you have, I mean, the specials, and then the volumes, which you add like blocking volumes and the light mass importance volumes, which we'll go into later, of course. And then this, of course, will show selected objects only. Let's bring back everything. So let's say I'll just select that bad boy there and just show the thing I've selected. And we'll bring everything back. Oops. What did I do? What did I do? I just ruined everything. So then we can just reset it with that button right there, which is pretty easy. So yeah, that's pretty much that little section. I haven't really used that much, obviously, as you can see. And then you got the invert selection. That was up in that section too that I had showed you. So then we have really simple commands here. We can go to the builder brush. Probably should have used that earlier. Then pop you right to the builder brush, or go to the actor. So if I select something down there, let's say that thing, and then bloop, brings me right to it. So that's pretty simple. Okay, so down here we have a command line. If you need to do any commands, I have yet to learn any of them. I've never really used or needed anything, so that's why I haven't really touched that. You got your little axis thing, which tells you what your viewport is doing right now. If you're looking up and upside down or something like that, it'll tell you. If you're turned around, you got this is the source control thing I was talking about earlier. Don't worry about that. Some shortcuts to building your lighting and your paths. They give you little warnings there. If you see that little sign, it's a warning, and there'll be a warning sign for that one too. And then you got like saying here if your packages need saved. Like if you don't have a package that needs saved, let's say we go to blob shadow, like if that's unsaved and we do some kind of manipulating to it, like we'll add something in here, new texture 2D. Okay, so and you can see there's a little star there and there's a star there, and then I guess it's not reading it. Come on, it usually does that. Oh well. Guess it's not. Need checkout. What? Did they change that? Oh man, making a fool of myself. Anyway, don't worry about that then. Oh man, I'm dumb. Okay, let's go back to this little pillar here. We'll select this. Over here, it gives you all the information you need about the static mesh actor in front of you, or anything else you select except BSP, I guess. But for static mesh actors, it's perfect. And then it gives you right here draw scale, which is you have the overall draw scale, and then you have the X, Y, and the Z. So if you want to make it taller, do that. Give it a 3. And then, of course, you can scale it based on the entire scale. So you make it a 3 here, and then it'll just be bigger overall. So that's kind of valuable right there if you want to mess with the size. Let's go back to 1. See, it's got fatter there. Back to 1 for this, too. I don't know if that was what it was at. Never mind. So that's that little section there. That's actually nice and useful. Now you got your snap grids. This is where you get to tell it how much you want it to snap or not. This is going to be the drag grid. So I usually have that to 16, so it stays snappy at 16. Then there's the rotation snap grid, which is obviously use best 5 to 6, and you can see it'll do increments right there for you. 5.63, another 5.63, blah 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 blah, all the way until get to your points. There's also, of course, what is there any other options? Yeah, I wouldn't worry about any of this. That stuff's annoying. So, and now there's also the scaling snap grid. So if you want to scale by every 10%, it will snap for you. See, snap, snap, snap. And you can increase that to 50. So, snap, 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 snap. And I think I usually keep that at 5. So, anyway, and then there's the autosave option, which is what we saw up there. And I usually leave that unchecked, but I suggest you keep it checked. I would be careful, though, because I did have some problems one time with it crashing on me when it auto-saved when I was in the middle of doing something. So I would highly suggest using the Save Current Level option up here whenever you can. So I would highly suggest that. Okay, let's go to the top here for all the viewports. This is going to be the same thing on all the viewports. So if I collapsed it, you'll see it pops up on the top of every single one. And this is because each one you can configure differently. So we got a viewing thing here that will tell you the different view types, and you can show and hide stuff, and you can do a couple different options here I'll show you, and you can also do everything that you see up here. There are different view types. So I'll skip, let's see, I'll skip all this stuff right here because I'll tell you where to use it, but for this stuff, so flags quick menu. Oh, okay. So this is just showing you what you don't want to see and stuff. Let's see, BSP, disappear. But that's just stuff you want to show and hide. You can have that up on another screen. So pretty much it gives you a list of the stuff you don't want to see, and you can make it disappear or come back or whatever, and then reset it to default, which should be what I have it at now. So if we wanted to get rid of BSP, we wanted to make volumes disappear, which is a good thing. And then if I want it all back, reset. Okay, so that's pretty explanatory. Collision modes, that gets into physics. I'll kind of explain that later. That's kind of complicated. And then post-processing, of course, we'll go into that later too. And then it kind of just shows you what it wants to simulate. And this would just be like if you're working and you don't want to see all the depth of field and stuff that you have set. And then advanced would be little small things that would get in your way as well, like fog. As you can see, I got rid of the fog. Well, one of the fogs. I guess there's a different fog out there too. Huh, that's weird. They must have something else out there too that I don't know what it is. So yeah, that's just different things for hiding. I suggest you go through and explore these and see. If you don't know what they are, then I guess they have different layers too. I'll have to go into that later. But they pretty much categorize different objects under different things. Like there's the bridge right there. So if we want to get rid of the bridge, they obviously have it set to bridge. Or not. I thought they would have had it set to bridge. I guess not. Oh, wait. What do they have it? Oh, I don't even know what that is. Never mind. Don't worry about the layers. And then sprites are for the different particle systems and stuff. I really wouldn't mess with these too much. If you're going to do anything, just mess with these ones right here. If you just need to get them out of the way, because that can end up usually to a lot of issues with losing stuff. But always just, if you can't find something and you know it's there, just do reset to default and it should pop up. So this is changing the viewport type. I'll show that here in a second. You can actually do that by doing this too. Stop it. Stop it, you dumb thing. If you click on this, it'll cycle between them. So that's the same thing as the viewport type. Real time, it makes it so that it's actually showing what's happening with different animated textures. As you can see, the water's moving. The water's moving here. These are all animated materials. So what we need, if we don't want to see those, we uncheck the real time, which is that, or, of course, this little drop down, which will stop everything. I usually like to keep it on because it keeps me company sometimes. So anyway, we can show the FPS, which will pop up at the top right here. As you can see, it's going 22. I don't know if that's completely accurate. Well, maybe it is. I don't know. It looks a lot better than that. There we go. It's going up. That'll give you kind of a stats thing, see how well your level's running. I don't usually use that. And then, of course, the actual stats, which should show, you know, if your lighting needs to be rebuilt, your paths do, or stuff like that. So that's kind of like the status. I'm going to skip all this because this isn't necessary right here. It's all out here. And in more, it's much more accessible. Bookmarks. There's bookmarks? I didn't even know that. Oh, that's weird. Game view, of course, which I use just G for, and that actually, I'll show you that in a second. And then Unreal Matinee Preview. Make sure that's always checked, or you're going to have a lot of problems later when you're trying to make cinematics. Unlit movement is something you can do if you have a kind of a poor computer. What it does is every time you go to move, it actually makes everything go unlit, which is something that is usually very intensive. And then when you stop, it goes back to lit. So if you have a suffering computer, I'd check that. And then culling and occlusion, what this does is it makes it so stuff goes through occlusion if you have it set to. I don't know if anything on here is set to occlusion. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. If anything, occlusion's kind of bad when you're making machinimas. And then, oh, look at that. They have add camera actor here. I never knew they had that anymore. So what you can do now is just add a camera actor on the spot there, which will be kind of helpful later. So that's cool that they added that, but we don't need it now. So anyway, we'll go across the top. I already went through this. This shows you the side, the perspective, front, top kind of thing. You got the real-time check thing, which will stop texture or materials and then start them back up again. You have your brush wireframe, which turns everything into wireframe. You may have seen the newest Unreal 4 screenshots that kind of look like this. Pretty much you can see everything as it is in the static mesh form. These were these little lights right here that I was trying to click on earlier. I guess this is the way you're going to have to select them now if that other thing's not working. This is also a little different from wireframe mode because it includes the actual brushes of the BSP instead of just the outline for the geometry, which I'll go into later. So there's really not a huge difference between these two. As you can see, there's a little thing popping up. That's some BSP. I'll go into that later. So there's brush wireframe and then wireframe. Most of the time we're going to be in brush wireframe, of course. So that's how that works. So anyway, then there's unlit mode, which pretty much kills all the lighting and shadows and makes it so everything is unlit. And this is probably the best way to work when you're placing objects and you're placing lights and stuff. It's the best way to work until you can build lighting, because until then it starts to slow down everything and gets really annoying to work in. So this is a good way to work until you can, rebuild the lighting, because sometimes rebuilding lighting takes a while. So that's that. Then we have, of course, lit mode, which is just normal lit, takes all the lights into account. We have detail lighting. This is actually a recent add as well. And what this does is it shows all the lighting only, and then what it's doing with the normal maps, because all these materials have what are called normal maps, which are simulated bump mapping, and you can see these little things on here. If you go to unlit mode, of course, you can still see them because it's the way it's rendered. The material is rendered. You tell it to do that. We'll go into that later, more in depth. But yeah, that's detail lighting. That's usually cool to go around and see what's going on with shadows and different normal maps and how they're working. So that's always fun. Lighting only is the same thing, but it only shows lighting and how, like, what color the lighting is. It doesn't render textures, and it just shows you shadows and stuff and how that's playing into your map. We have light complexity, which shows you how light is playing off of these different materials and surfaces. It's, as long as you look around and it's mostly green, this isn't a huge deal. As long as it's mostly green, it's going to be fine, whereas red is a little more complex. It's not really a great tool all the time. It's kind of hard to explain. Then you got texture density. And what this is another way of telling how your map's running through rendering the different materials, because sometimes when you squash stuff, it compresses the texture and it's really dense. And other times you stretch it out, or it's the way it's meant to be, and it's nice and nice and blue. So, oh man, see there was the lens flare right there. So yeah, that's as long as most of the things is the cooler it is, the better it is, and then the darker red and hot it is, the worse it is. But that's not really a huge deal. Probably the biggest thing here is shader complexity. As you can see, the shader complexities are extremely severe, and it's very complex the way they have this set up, because a lot of these materials are put together very complicated with material instances and stuff and different settings that make it render out and look really good, but at the same time it can be kind of hard to make the game run smooth. So you got to be careful with this, especially when you're looking through, sometimes when you're looking through different textures, it will make it, as you can see, the fire right here is actually making some of the stuff back there look more red, which means you're looking through something that is making, you know, stuff behind it more intensive to render, because it's altering the appearance and the shading. And as you can see, the pink one is probably the worst. Yeah, if you see a lot of pink, then you're kind of in trouble, and it's probably gonna not run the best. So that's shader complexity. Light map density is, I want to say it's kind of like shadows and how stuff is. I've never really messed with this too much. It's not really a huge thing unless you're really tweaking stuff. So I haven't really messed with this ever before. You can probably get a better description of a lot of this stuff with Zach at the 3D Buzz tutorials. And then we go over to the last one is lighting only with texel density. And this is kind of like the texture density that we looked at earlier, and in the sense that it shows it all in the lighting only mode. It's kind of cool to look around these ones. The main ones you're going to be using is lit, unlit, and detail lighting, and then checking up on shader complexity once in a while, just to make sure everything's running good. So I'm going to stay in lit mode. And the next little section here is, of course, game mode. What this does is it renders it as you would see it in game. And you can also, and hit escape there and deselect that. When you're in game mode, it just kind of gives you an emulation of what would be happening in game mode. It gets rid of all this like editor stuff. So you can hit G. That's what I usually do, back and forth on G. A lot of stuff won't show up unless you're in game mode. So like this lens flare, they obviously told that to not be there because it was getting in the way. As you can, oh, maybe it is still there on game mode. Oh wait, it's still kind of there, but they added some more glow. That must be the post process. So in the post process, volume won't show up unless you're in game mode as well. So unless you tell it not to. So you can lock the viewport. What this will do is it makes it so wherever you have it, it doesn't move, so that you can have the other viewports moving without this one. Like, let's lock this one. Oh, I guess that doesn't do it. Oh, well, I guess I'm wrong. I don't know what that does then. Whoops. Yeah, fantastic. You got to be careful. The next one here, I'm just going to forget about that. There was an explanation in one of the 3D Buzz ones. So I'd suggest looking up that if you really want to know what it does, but I don't think it's that important. It might have something to do with, I don't know. Okay, so you got to be really careful with this next one. What it does is it locks any actors that you have selected to the camera. So this object I've selected, if I tap that, and as soon as I move, it's gonna like lock the. As you can see, there's the shadow of me pretty much. So that's flying with me, and then if I unlock it, of course, it's going to stay where I left off, and it can usually end up twisting. So if I accidentally like selected one of these and had this selected and started flying around, and it's like, what? Where did it go? And I'm like, oh, wait. Okay. And then when I go to Control Z stuff, it doesn't work. So it really can screw up. So I would be very careful with that. These are, this one right here is for the level streaming. I wouldn't mess with that too much. It usually has to do like with what I talked about earlier. I will, I'm going to look that stuff up, and I'll probably do an episode on that. The next thing here, you got the post-process volume previs, which lets you see what the post-process volume is doing. And obviously in this one, it kind of desaturates and adds kind of a blown-out factor to it. as you can see. The camera movement is the next one, of course, and this lets you control how fast your camera moves, like when you're doing the navigation. This is the slowest. This is the second fastest. This is the third fastest, and this, of course, is the fastest. So if you really want to book it across a big map, this is the way to do it, because you'll fly like crazy. So that's how you do that. I usually like to keep it on this unless I'm doing some train editing on a big map. Here you got that play and viewport, which will just make it so the viewport is your play area. And, of course, you have tear off a floating copy, which will duplicate it and put it in a window if you need to move that on another monitor or something. So, is that it? Oh, yeah, these things up here. That minimizes, that restores, that closes it. Okay, I think that's it. I went over everything. That was kind of a long video. So that is your viewport, your UI interface stuff. I'm going to have to do a whole separate thing. The next thing I'll go over is the content browser. And then after that, we can start getting into building our first map. And that's the fun part, because then you guys get to, you know, make your own maps, then put them as video responses and stuff. And I can see how you guys did and everything. So anyway, I highly suggest you go through all these and make sure you know what they mean, what they do. The stuff that I didn't know what to do, feel free to look them up and see what they do if they're important. Remember, always feel free to comment if I did something wrong. If you know, you have any questions that I can answer about the UI specifically, and all that great stuff. So I'll see you guys on the next episode. I hope you enjoyed this one, and stay tuned for more Unreal tutorials.